The new season patch is finally here, and with new heroes, new maps, and most importantly, new balance changes, the meta is going to look entirely different after the mid-season patch. So let's break down the 10 big winners characters usually consider picking up and maining going into this season, and give you some tips and tricks along the way. Now we have a ton of hero guides coming soon, so make sure you smash that like, subscribe so you don't miss out, and let's jump into it. Now the first winner of the mid-season patch is actually Bucky, and you might be like, Mills, Bucky didn't get a change in this patch, and that's exactly right. Bucky did not get changed when a lot of characters around him did, and this is going to make Bucky a lot better because Bucky was already insanely good. He was just under the level that needed a ban. A lot of other characters got the ban first, so Bucky was one of the best characters remaining that didn't really get target banned all that much. And there's a lot of really strong aspects about Bucky specifically going after the mid-season patch. Characters like Venom and characters like Cap that received heavy buffs are going to be a problem this season. Bucky is one of the best answers to these characters, and similarly, Groot is also going to be more powerful this season, and Bucky is fairly good against Groot as well, capable of bullying him a lot easier than the Magnetos and the Stranges. Also, characters like Thor are going to be problematic to deal with, but Bucky can shut him down, and in general, a lot of dive-centric characters or mobility-heavy characters are going to see a lot of play right now. Whether it's a Psylocke trying to sneak up on your supports or a Spider-Man trying to constantly flank you, Bucky has the tools to shut all of that down. I think the biggest underrated aspect of Bucky is just how tanky he is. Remember, 275 HP, and he's going to be gaining health or shields with every ability that he uses, which means after he cycles through all of them, he effectively has well into the 300, 350 HP, which means that a lot of poke, spam, and random damage bits that he's going to take, he just doesn't care about as much as some other characters do. He's also just generally really hard to duel, whether you're a tank, a DPS, or support, it doesn't matter. Bucky has the tools to win any 1v1. Now, there are a couple of things that Bucky has to fear going into this patch. Number one, you can't CC the Thing at all. So if the Thing ends up being really powerful, Bucky will feel that more than some other characters. And some characters that outrange Bucky, like Hela, Hawkeye, and Adam Warlock, all did receive buffs. So that is something to consider. But in general, Bucky is an all-around great DPS, and I highly recommend picking him up and adding him to your hero pool right now. Now, we mentioned him already, but we do have to talk about the next winner, Adam Warlock. This character is going to be the truth this patch. He is absolutely insane, because this is what they did to the character. Not only did they buff his damage from 55 to 60, now the fall off isn't as severe at 40 meters, and they increase the amount of healing that his soul bond provides. 3 different buffs to this character that just make him more lethal and allow more survivability. Now, for those of you who didn't play in beta, Adam Warlock was the legitimately best character in beta. He was insane and received a pretty heavy nerf going into Season 0 when the game actually launched. The combination of abilities that can instantly heal your team to max HP through burst healing, or keep your team alive through even ultimates with soul bond, and super high lethality, the capability to rack up a ton of damage, a ton of limbs, and even contest characters that are isolated, win duels with other DPS characters on the roster. It's the perfect package altogether, but Adam Warlock has taken a backseat before this patch because of the overwhelming power level of a lot of the defensive ultimates, how easy they were to generate, and the number tweaking on Adam, making him a bit weaker. Now, with all those things buffed up, and all the other support ultimates much harder to generate, and support nerfs in general across the board basically, but specifically Adam Warlock getting a massive buff, he is going to be a gigantic winner. And he's also one of the characters that is the best at contesting many of the flyers that are meta in this game. Characters like Iron Man, characters like Storm. He's really good against both, and will be good against the Human Torch as well. Now, this character does require great mechanics from you and good positioning because you don't have mobility, but when you access these things, this character can carry harder than any other support in the game, and I highly recommend you pick him up in the mid-season patch because he's gonna be incredible, I guarantee it. Now, the first tank we gotta talk about, of course, is your boy Thor, and Thor got a seemingly minor buff, but it's not actually minor at all. Now, there's no shared cooldown time after the duration of his Awakening Rune, his mode where he pops in and can throw lightning bolts that does a crazy amount of damage. There was a cooldown that after it you couldn't activate another ability right away, but now you can. This is not only gonna make the character feel far more fluid, but also increase combo potential with his other abilities, being able to chain Awakening Rune into other abilities back into Awakening Rune really quickly. And I'm gonna be working on an in-depth advanced Thor guide as an update to my previous guide on Thor, so make sure you smash that subscribe so you don't miss out on that. But why has Thor actually been so good? Why has he been so dominant? And I'm actually surprised he got a buff at all, because this character has been insanely good in all ranks of play, even the highest ranks of play. And there's a lot of reasons why. Thor is incredibly good at bullying other tanks and other front lines. Characters like Strange and Magneto, you can constantly displace them, put them out of position. Thor's also very good at contesting a lot of DPS. Characters like Moon Knight need to be contested. They can't just be allowed to free farm. Thor can take the fight to them and win it every single time. He's a very powerful off tank that gives you a ton of flexibility in decision making. Whether you want to dive the isolated support in the backline and kill them instantly through heals, you can. Want to contest the high ground DPS that's constantly shooting at your team? You can, and you can kill him consistently. You want to displace their tanks on the front line? You can do that as well. There's so many different decisions you have and so many different ways you could impact the fight. I think Thor is one of the hardest carry mains at any elo, and one that I highly recommend picking up, especially going into this mid-season after this buff. It's going to be nuts. Now, number 4 on this list is a character that is going to be way stronger, and it's Star-Lord. Star-Lord does get a buff here from 1200 to 1800 maximum energy, which means that he's going to be able to fly around a lot more, and he's going to have more mobility, which is a nice change, sure, but that's not why this character is going to be so good in this season. So, for one, he synergizes with Adam Warlock, which is going to be amazing. So, he's going to have that extra revive. That synergy is fantastic, and I do imagine that Star-Lord, Adam Warlock, and Mantis is going to be a very strong trio this season. On top of that, Star-Lord didn't really like playing against triple support. There was too much support healing, too much utility, too many ultimates that are being popped. Star-Lord had a hard time creating value in the mid fight. He wants more DPS to be played, more isolated fights, and that's exactly what this mid-season is going to be. With the massive nerfs to support ultimates and supports across the board, Star-Lord is going to be more opened up than ever to take these DPS duels, because more off-angling is going to happen in this mid-season by far. And in addition to that, there's a lot of characters that fly that need to be contested. Once again, characters like Iron Man, characters like the Human Torch, characters like Storm, even though she is getting a nerf. Star-Lord is great against all these characters. He can contest them. He's one of the best things that can contest them. Don't even get me started if he gets damage boosted by Mantis, or if that person gets slightly tagged by your Adam Warlock. Star-Lord just has the easiest kills in the world. Crazy high uptime and a very powerful ultimate, especially in a world where we go back to duo support primarily, and one of the supports most likely will not have a defensive ultimate. Star-Lord is absolutely going to shine this season. But one of the things you got to consider is the fact that he does require high levels of mechanical skill. There's a really big difference between 1 and 2 clipping somebody, and practicing your mechanics every single day on this character, I would highly recommend. But if you want to see a mechanic guide to help you get better aim, let me know in the comments down below. The number 5 on this list, our second support, is Rocket. And you're going to be pretty surprised that I put him here, but you got to understand that Rocket was already winning quite a bit before the patch, and he was one of the few supports that didn't get touched. So even though he didn't get massively buffed, he is gonna be a lot better. He's gonna feel a lot better than he felt in the previous season by far. And in addition to these things, Rocket is one of the best characters against divers. So when you're getting jumped on by Cap, when you're being jumped on by Venom, simultaneously sometimes, any other support would rather be a Rocket that could just freaking get the hell away from that, which is a really big deal. In addition to that, with Bucky being really strong this season and Punisher being fantastic at bullying characters like Gru and just tanks in general with the Rocket synergy, Rocket will be really powerful in a support composition not playing Adam Warlock. So we could play like Adam Warlock Mantis or Adam Warlock whatever, but Rocket and like Luna with a Namor and a Bucky, or a Namor and a Punisher, is another composition you could probably run that is very strong, providing a good mix of offense and defense and playmaking potential. Also, I still think it's underrated how powerful the Rocket jump is that his BRB spits out. When used properly on a dive, DPS tank, or Wolverine, you can literally win that first fight for free with it. Now, the 6th winner we got to talk about is Gru, a character that actually did receive a buff. His Iron Lash wall placement is going to go from 15 meters to 18 meters, but really this character has been really good for quite some time, and a lot of people are finally waking up to it. One of the most powerful ultimates in the game, extreme amounts of playmaking potential, and just incredibly good at dictating the pace of play. Groot is a character that a lot of people underrate, but really great groups in top 500 are constantly getting their group banned, because that's how strong this character is. A character that doesn't normally get banned, when in the hands of someone that knows what they're doing, becomes an absolute menace. Being able to cut off line of sight to supports, being able to pressure out tanks in a way that other characters just really can't, and you also generally combo really well with characters like Namor and Moon Knight, although I think the Moon Knight synergy is less needed without as much triple support, but Namor is going to be very strong, and playing them together is going to be amazing. If you haven't already learned Groot and you're looking for a tank to pick up that can literally deadlift games, look no further than Groot. I promise you, you will love grinding this character and you will win a lot of games with him. A lot of people don't put enough time into him at the start to get over that little awkward learning hump with him, but once you do, this character is perhaps one of the hardest carry heroes in the entire game, and I cannot recommend him enough. Now, number 7 on this list as a winner in the DPS category is Psylocke. Psylocke is a character that didn't get directly buffed as of this patch, but will be amazing nonetheless. Psylocke was honestly underrated in the previous meta, but people started playing her less, going from a top tier DPS to something that was around the A tier. People didn't play her nearly as much, and I think the original reason for that is that Psylocke did have a little bit of trouble with triple support. So much utility, so many things to burst through, not that reliable, but now going back to double support more, and honestly, just a more aggressive meta in general. Characters like Adam Warlock being meta really speed up the pace of the game entirely. There's a lot more damage flying around. There's a lot more picks being traded out instead of everything being a sustained battle where someone pokes and someone pokes back and pokes back and pokes back. It's a lot more pick and counter pick. A lot more trades are happening, and Psylocke really thrives in that environment. She has great dueling potential. She can contest off angles. She's really hard to kill if you play well, and can reset and re-enter the fight at will without the need to go back to her team. She can dip out, get a health pack, come back, so she's really self-sufficient, and she can attack from any angle. This means constantly re-engaging the backline or resetting up to get in position for her Venom or her Cap that are going to be really strong this season, by the way. Jumping in and diving in, and she plays off of that. And while Psylocke is super good with a lot of the mobility-heavy characters, I think she can play in a lot of different compositions and still be good. You can always just play the front line, build up your ultimate, and poke with your team. And also, this character is one of the best at dealing with flyers. I know you think traditional hit scans, characters like Hela, and other characters like Punisher to deal with a flyer, but Psylocke has hit scan primary, and she can come from any angle. So that Iron Man that's like hiding behind the pillar, or that Johnny Storm that's hiding around the corner, Psylocke can poke that person out, chase them down, and kill them over and over again, and is one of the best characters to keep that in check. Honestly, Psylocke is super strong. I highly recommend picking her up this patch, and I'm going to be doing the same as well. Now, we do have to talk about Luna Snow, a character that did get a ult charge nerf, so that's going to be felt a bit. Her ultimate's going to be harder to generate, but I actually think that Luna's actually going to be better in this patch than the previous patch, which you might be like, what the heck? How does that make any sense, Mills? She got nerfed. Well, for one, she did get a slight buff in the Iron Fist Atlas Bond synergy, but really the reason that she's better this season is that the other characters got a fair bit worse. Specifically, Cloak and Dagger is going to feel quite a bit worse. Cloak and Dagger's ultimate is way harder to generate, and it's not going to be as long, and it's not going to be stackable. This makes the ultimate less comparable to the incredibly powerful Luna Snow ultimate, and especially in a world where there's 2 supports being played and not 3, Luna Snow starts to look a lot more appealing, especially when we consider that Namor synergy, with that synergy and Namor specifically being one of the best characters in the game right now. Luna's also really flexible because she can heal high mobility characters by putting their snowflake on them, and she can heal frontline. So whether you're playing a Groot, or whether you're playing a Venom, or a Psylocke, or a Star-Lord, or whatever, Luna can make it happen. Luna has the tools to heal everybody, and Luna's also a great character to complement some of the supports that maybe don't have that amount of healing potential. Someone like Adam Warlock, for example, well, you really need a support that can do the mass healing, the bulk healing for you, and Adam could do everything else. Now, that being said, on Luna, sometimes you're going to have to make the hard call. There are going to be a lot more offensive ultimates than there are defensive ultimates, right? You have one powerful defensive ultimate, and there's a lot of ults that are going to be thrown out, and you have to make the call whether you're going to invest or not. Or are you going to try to make a play on it? Like, as an example, if you can freeze the Eye of Agamotto out of the cast time instead of popping ult in response, that could be an ult that you save for when the Star-Lord comes around the corner and pops his ult as well. There's a lot of playmaking potential on Luna this season. So if you track ults, make a plan for them, and play to counter them, you can completely carry games. So I highly, highly recommend Luna this patch. And number 9 is Captain America, a character that increasingly gets more and more buffs, and with this patch gets increased survivability. survivability. He's gonna feel less clunky, and his ultimate is gonna be more obtainable. He's gonna have a lot less ult charge cost. And there are a whole bunch of other smaller changes, like being able to use the shield mid-leap and being able to use melee attacks while he's airborne, and it's not going to trigger the super soldier slam ability. So there's a lot about this character that is getting buffed. Now, Cap was already really good before. He just needed someone to help him create kills because he was not great at confirming the kills himself. He didn't have a high amount of damage. But while that didn't get directly addressed, the awkwardness in his kit, I think, also decreased his DPS. And now people are playing off Caps better, and honestly, I think Cap is just one of the best creators for dive or mobility heavy characters, period. Whether you're playing a Black Panther, whether you're playing a Magic, these characters really thrive off of the pressure that Cap creates. As an incredibly mobile threat that can take a lot of aggro and not die, that's just crazy. And combine Cap with the buffed Venom as well, and there's really the making for a really hyper mobile composition this season, maybe something more akin to a traditional dive that we haven't seen in Rivals yet to the same extent we've seen in other games like Overwatch. Now, I think the most important thing about this character, though, is to know your limits and properly time. There's nothing worse than going in and fighting the enemy, but then having to run away and leaving when your team is finally showing up. It's really important to be on the same page as everybody. If you have other characters, you want them to be within line of sight of the enemy applying pressure at the same time you're applying pressure, because the idea is while your team is fighting something, you're also applying pressure to the supports or whoever you're on, so that person can't help the people that your team is fighting. It's all about pressure compounded, so that timing is really important. And as someone with hypermobility, you need to make sure that you're not so ahead of your team that you're running away or backing out to get healed as your team is coming in to fight. That disconnect is just going to lose you a ton of games. Now, the last character on the list before we talk about broken synergies I would recommend is Namor. And Namor is just most likely the best DPS before the patch, did not get touched at all, and Luna is going to be just as strong, if not stronger. Namor's going to be a problem. This character is so freaking good. He's good at contesting Star-Lord. He's good at contesting Psylocke. He's good at contesting Flyers. He's good aggressively going on an off angle, throwing down squids and fighting. He's good sitting in your backline, denying a dive. This character is just really good. His invincibility frames, his burst damage, the ease of his projectile to hit. I mean, it all comes together to just make this character just insane. I think he's one of the best, if not the best DPS in the entire game, and a character I would really recommend. But remember what I said specifically. You cannot play Namor super passively against a composition that doesn't come into you to create value. So if you're playing Namor, let's say you have the Lunar Snow synergy, you cannot just sit in your backline all game and just throw pot shots across the map against Hellas and Hawkeyes and even Buckies. This is not going to work because you're not getting enough value to justify the pick compared to them. You need to be more aggressive. You need to off angle more. You need to be more aggressively positioned, maybe even flank sometimes with your squids. But if you're up against like Magic, Panther, Spider-Man, now you're going to get value just by denying what they're doing, because those characters don't do anything in the neutral. They don't do anything unless they're in and at your team. So you're doing more than them by poking and spamming from your backline, and then when they come in, you kill them or you get them out of there. So you got to understand when you're getting value on Namor in a default position and when you need to play a more aggressive position or a more proactive playstyle to get value on the character. He can do both. It's really up to you how you play him, but it's going to depend on what the enemy is playing. That decides what you do. Now, I did want to talk about some really strong synergies I would recommend. We talked about Punisher Rocket, very, very good. Hela, Thor, Loki is still going to be very strong. I know that Hela got buffed and Thor got buffed. Loki did get nerfed, but he's honestly incredibly powerful and will be just fine going into this patch. We highly recommend the Adam Mantis and Star-Lord synergy. It's going to be more powerful this patch than it was last patch by quite a margin, and it was already winning at a really high % win rate. And also, Dimensional Shortcut, the passive recall from Black Panther and Psylocke, is going to be buffed by quite a bit. And really, both Psylocke and Black Panther can be so much more powerful with that ability. So if you have a great Magic player, all of a sudden these characters get unlocked in a more powerful way. I think Black Panther benefits from it more, but both characters really do love it. Now, honestly, let me know down below if there's any hero you think is going to be dominant this patch. Let us know your reasons why down below. Please smash that like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Check me out on stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at my Twitch. Links in the description. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.